Non-Canadians, what is something about us that makes you instantly know we're Canadian? The big ones for me, as someone engaged to a Canadian. Learning what a Mickey is, their small bottle of alcohol. Toast beanies. Bunny hug hoodie, Saskatchewan specific Kirk. Hearing the word bud for a person is definitely more common. I don't notice the variations in about as much, but sure, absolutely. It's so much more like sure. You're Americanish but polite and you're active listeners. The easiest people in the world to talk to, and you can drink to keep up with me in Aussie. High school exchange was fun. Also, I like the idea behind Nunavut, even if the reality isn't working very well. No offense to my American friends and family. Canucks have an accent, are tribal hard-nosed. I know, I used to live in Alberta, and had a hell of a time fitting in, relocating from California, beautiful country though. Wish I could say the same about the people ran back to the good old USA Sunshine State. Sorry, I was told by my American family members it's that we look both ways before crossing the street and wait for the light to switch. I have a hard time believing this as they live in New York and San Francisco. Also, they haven't met anyone from BC. You guys are basically Americans honestly upon first impression. Biggest hell is their accents if they have any, but even still there aren't anything wild that makes me nod my head and say they're Canadian straight away. You guys hit the A real hard in certain words like pasta and Mario. US paused ah. Canada passed ah. US Mario. Canada Mario. Also, the grade thing. US 8th grade. Canada grade 8. Work in the travel industry, you all apologize a lot. I've said many times after a Canadian apologizes for something that they had no control over, hey, you really are Canadian. I don't even have time to think about it. The moment you guys get even the slightest inkling someone might suspect that you're American, you mention being Canadian. Lol. Accent, up north, celebration of life is actually a funeral, the cute way some guys bob their head explaining things. You know what ketchup chips are. I'm fairly sure that by Canadian law all Canadians that leave the country must have a maple leaf adorned somewhat on their person whenever in public. Accent never fails when a Canadian pauses to correct themselves and the oot still comes out. Hilarious every time? It's like when I say y'all, a hint of exaggeration on the letter O. If you listen closely enough to anyone that's Canadian talking, you can occasionally hear it. I can detect the silent feeling of relief and gratitude you feel when someone asks if you're American and you say no, Canadian. You say First Nations. We say Native Americans or Sioux Indians when referring to indigenous people in our respective countries. A boot is a dead giveaway, as well as ending most sentences with a. And referring to your couch or sofa as in Chesterfield. Wearing short sleeves in freezing weather because it doesn't feel cold. It's 10 degrees this morning, I'll think I'll go jog. You're drinking a red Solo cup full of maple syrup while watching hockey and everyone in the room is taking turns apologizing. The long O's are a dead giveaway. For example, you say process like process, instead of process like us Americans do. Pronouncing Montreal as Montreal is a pretty big giveaway. I've only ever heard Americans pronounce it that way. Feeling special about being Canadian, but your culture is the same as the US. Let the downvoting frenzy begin, smiley face. When you ask a Canadian where they're from, they answer, I'm not American, I'm Canadian, in an annoyed tone. Definitely the accents. I live close to the border with Vancouver and I've heard them a lot around here. The way you pronounce words with O in them, the A, and the way you never leave us tips lol. As an American English speaker, hearing process instead of process always trips me off. About to boot. War rhymes with jar, not war. ZZ. Very polite. When an American talks about ice hockey, Tams, or says a boot, they're actually Canadian. Speaking about cheese on fries as if you're the only country that has ever thought of this. When you stridently deny being American but then tell us how far behind we are. If I say a driver must be from Alberta, you give, at minimum, a knowing nod. Sentence dialogue conversation A. You immediately make sure you angrily tell us if we assume you're American. You have that glass leaf bottle of maple syrup and a bunch of hockey merch. The top half of your head separates from the bottom half as you talk. I have some friends from BC. They say fuck nearly every other word. The Canadian flags you carry with you when you travel internationally. Talking in a North American accent by saying Z instead of Z. Oot. It's the Northern Hemisphere's version of NZ Telltale 6. You guys usually just tell us before we have a chance to notice. Not going bankrupt just because you had to go to the hospital. Around here, it's hard to separate you from the Yoopers. Eh? You have a big container of maple syrup 1 liter or bigger. Some of you say a boot for about It's a dead giveaway. Always with your bags of milk and your damn blue money.